Welcome back to Grid Down Magazine at Guns America Digest. If you haven't subscribed yet to Guns America Digest, you should do so at gunsamerica.com/digest. And the articles that go along with these videos are at griddownmag.com. So if you subscribe to the Digest, you will get our emails that will include the Grid Down stuff as well as its own quarterly publication. Today I'm on the topic of dowsing, which is finding underground water with some sort of sixth sense. I didn't used to believe in it, thought it was hocus pocus, but if there's anything that I've learned in the last several years, it's that nothing is quite as it seems. And all of the things that we're taught are not quite true when it comes to science, and that there's a lot that is put to us as being mysterious that isn't really mysterious and is very easily provable. So dowsing is one of those things, walking along the surface with a stick and it, pointing down where there's water. And good dowsers can find water, can tell you how deep it is and how much there is. I have no idea how. What made me believe in it was this book, The Home Water Supply. It's an old book from the 80s of Story Publishing. If you're not familiar with Story books, and it's S-T-O-R-E-Y, there's an E in there, it's not like story. And I've learned a lot of the basics of the things that I know how to do from these story books stuff, but it was long before the World Wide Web and all the information resources that we have today. So back then, if you wanted to learn how to make soap, or you wanted to learn how to keep chickens, or keep a family cow, I have all of these books from Story Publishing from literally 20 to 25 years ago. So I've had this book for a long time. It's got a lot of great information in it. I don't recommend you buy it, except that it can perhaps put you on a path of discovery where you can go online and then find out more about it. And that's the way it is with dowsing, is that there is a dowsing kind of chapter. And as you can see, they show that you can use a stick, a willow, or there's a couple other trees that people use, or these brass rods. So, and then you just walk along and until you find it, and either you have it or you don't. That's what I gathered from this chapter, what I've gathered from my research over the years. The interesting thing is that the American Society of Dowsers in 1983 was a thing. It still is. It's at dowsers.org. So this guy did not believe in dowsing when he first was subjected to it, and saw it in action and found that well drillers usually will have dowsers as a resource of some kind to find things, and that they're usually very accurate when they have the touch, when they have the ability to do it. I don't know if I have the touch. I don't know if you have the touch. In South Florida, there's water everywhere. I just had a backup well put into my kind of off-grid place, and that well is like 160 feet. The problem with South Florida is the quality of the water. A lot of times it has hydrogen sulfide, it has iron in it, so it needs some kind of device, a device on the side of your house to clean it for you, to make it usable. So that's kind of a pain. But finding the water is not hard here. South Florida is full of water. Unfortunately, the groundwater here, we are on septic. Most of South Florida is on septic. So you can't really drink it. You can't really fish in the ponds. It's also full of, there's a lot of iron in the groundwater, so it turns everything orange. But I just want to kind of turn you guys onto dowsing, because back even to Prepping 101, and for certain with Grid Down, I'm not really talking about, necessarily Mad Max scenarios when I'm introducing you guys to all this stuff. What I'm doing is I'm kind of separating how how can you have a life that is less dependent upon a grid, upon a system, upon a banking system, a financial system, a currency system, a water system, a sewage system, a water pumping for your home system? You know, all of these things, they can be modularly built, and with the exception of something like air conditioning, convenience items, it's not, you know, it's the way people kind of used to live. People lived in Florida. Ernest Hemingway used to live in Key West. Very wealthy people lived in South Florida without air conditioning. One of the guy who built the railroads here, he lived in South Florida without air conditioning. He had a giant hotel, it's still there in West Palm, with no air conditioning. And some of the richest people in the world came here when there was no air conditioning. Usually they'd come for winters, but there were year-round people here, and you can live without air conditioning in the heat, just like you can live without real heat, you know, without an oil burner in the north. You can live with just a wood stove, and cutting your own wood and schlepping it and burning it and getting used to the cycle and the cleaning and all of it. It's just, that's basically what this is all about. And dowsing is no different. If you're in an area where you don't know where the water is and you want to put in a well, maybe you're on city water and you've seen that some of your neighbors have a well, or you've heard you can drill a well, you want to bring in a well driller, a deeper well, like a real well. In Florida, we don't need like artesian wells. We just have regular wells that you can have with a surface-based pump. You don't need to drop the pump all the way down in there. It's a much simpler system here. But if you have to get an artesian well, it's going to be a lot more expensive, and usually you'll drop the pump all the way down in. But they do make 12-volt versions of that. They do make 24-volt versions of it, 48-volt versions of it. And you would want a higher voltage if you're running a DC pump, because you can use thinner wire to get down there, and with carrying enough electricity to run the actual pump. And I have some of those. You know, I have some of those that I've reviewed over the years, and I'll probably return to them. I just haven't yet. And I just don't have a lot of time, honestly. And I feel like if I turn you guys on to something like dowsing, you can continue like I did. Like, I've taught myself all this stuff just with some initial, just some initial research it's all it takes. You can learn a lot from just the people selling you stuff. For the grid down stuff, I've tried, as many of you know, or most of you know, I would say by now, I've tried to find some product that I can have brought into the country and stocked by Star and Bullock Hardware, which is sbhardware.com. There's going to be a link to the product in the companion article with this video, and sometimes I'll put it in the description as well. Probably will with this guy. And I did find these brass dowsing rods. Now it's just they're just two rods that are on a fulcrum kind of thing, and I don't know how you're supposed to. As I said, I haven't ever done this before, so my guess is that finding your own personal balance with them, of how you get them straight, and then when you're over water, some people, they go outwards like this, some people they go inwards. I'm not doing this. I don't know, it's because I got water under me, but I don't know if I have the touch or not. And then you could always just use the old willow branch, like it's, like you've seen in the movies. It's not rocket science. Either you can do it or you can't. Ideally, obviously, if you wanted to take it seriously, I think you'd get the Society of Dowsers to give you some tips. I think that's probably the way you would do it, and then figure out if you can do it. If you can't do it, bring in a dowser. Maybe you don't even just start with that. Start by bringing in a dowser. I don't live in that part of the world anymore, so I don't have to deal with that. But I really, like I said, it's just having the ability to do stuff off the grid, off of the system, I think is super, super important. And if you if you can find your own water and you can afford to put in a well, even though it might seem extreme, I think putting in a well is not that extreme, especially when you can use some solar panels or wind generators, which I'm going to cover hopefully within a couple weeks. I've had some of those for a while that I was going to cover for you guys. It's not really relevant here. We don't have enough wind really to generate a lot, but I do have them. Go over how they work. This dowsing set, as you saw, it assembles pretty easy. It comes apart pretty easy, and I would assume it works. I'll see you next time.